Welcome to the Lion's Share podcast, where we break down today's most impactful research and bring fresh insights from the academic frontier straight to you.
The world of corporate innovation, it used to feel like you had these really clear lanes, right? You either, made physical things in manufacturing.
Tangible stuff.
Exactly. Or you were over here exploring biology, pharma, food science, that kind of thing. But today, those lanes, well, they haven't just blurred. I'd say they've pretty much converged completely.
They really have. And that's what we're diving deep into today. The strategic implications of this convergence. We're looking closely at how these two massive parallel revolutions are sort of colliding.
Okay, so what are those two?
On one side, you've got advanced manufacturing, think 3D printing, Industry 4.0 efficiency.
The physical production side getting smarter.
Precisely. And on the other side, you have this biological engineering revolution. CRISPR, genomics, precision medicine. It's a major collision.
So the mission then, for you listening, especially if you're a strategic leader, is really to get your head around how this intense shift towards precision, customization, and increasingly decentralized innovation is basically rewriting the rule book for production. We're moving way past that old 20th century question, can we make it faster and cheaper?
Which was the dominant question for decades.
Right. Now the strategic challenge for the 21st century feels more like, can we actually program it to grow, or maybe even self-repair?
And that concept, programmability, that's the absolute core thread here. It's not just about plugging in faster machines. It's much deeper. It's about organizations figuring out how to connect DNA, essentially biological programmable code, with the efficiency goals of advanced manufacturing.
So treating molecules like materials.
And materials like code. Exactly.
Well,
if that's the new reality, how does the firm even survive, let alone thrive? That's the big question.
Okay, let's set the stage a bit more. Talk about the pressures forcing this change. Traditional manufacturing, 20th century style, is typically centralized, right? Often subtractive.
Yeah, cutting material away, lots of waste sometimes.
And now it's really struggling. You've got unstable supply chains, demand uncertainty all over the place, and this huge, non-negotiable push for sustainability.
And that pressure cooker environment is what led to these two sort of parallel responses emerging. You mentioned them. On the mechanical fabrication side, you see Industry 4.0 and additive manufacturing really taking off.
Making things differently.
And on the biological fabrication side, you have genomics, CRISPR, precision medicine gaining incredible momentum. And our sources, the research we're looking at, it highlights innovators using digital tools across both spheres.
Like what specifically?
Well, everything from using AI to seriously optimize factory floor operations, making them way more efficient, all the way to actually using 3D printing to create, living human tissues. It's wild.
So the guiding theme really for this deep dive is how do corporate leaders, especially those focused on emerging tech, actually navigate these massive operational and market shifts? This blurring between the machine and the molecule, it really challenges the basic definition of a product, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Okay, let's dive into the biological side first. This new frontier of molecular customization. Genomics and bioprinting seem to be pushing precision really hard in medicine and even food production.
Yeah, and you almost have to start with CRISPR. CRISPR-Cas9 specifically. It started as a bacterial defense system.
Right, defending against viruses.
Exactly. And scientists cleverly repurposed it into this incredibly precise biological editor. The strategic significance now. Seeing it move from, purely academic discovery to a fully approved commercial therapy.
And we just hit a massive landmark there recently, didn't we? The first FDA-approved CRISPR gene therapy?
Casgevy, that's the one. Huge news. It treats sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia. And the CEO of CRISPR Therapeutics put it bluntly, they're essentially making a drug just for you.
Wow. How does that actually work? Practical.
Well, they take the patient's own cells out, make the necessary DNA edit outside the body, that's the ex vivo part, and then infuse them back in.
Okay, so that sounds like the definition of logistical complexity, driven by extreme personalization.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what's crucial for, the strategic thinker listening is understanding that operational constraint. Ex vivo works, yes, but it's incredibly complex logistically and very expensive.
So they can't just stop there.
Absolutely not. The firms involved, they aren't resting on their laurels. They've set up dedicated internal structures, like this research team called CRISPR-X.
Okay.
Their specific mission is to crack the next big nut. The delivery challenges for in vivo editing.
Meaning editing inside the body.
Exactly. getting the editing tools directly to hard-to-reach tissues like the brain or the lungs safely and effectively. This just shows this incredibly rapid, iterative, almost entrepreneurial development cycle built right into their organizational design. They know the first solution isn't the final one.
That level of customization, tailoring things right down to the DNA, it's now translating directly into manufacturing biological tissues too, right? Like with 3D bioprinting.
Yes, exactly. Look at the breakthrough from Dr. Quentin Perrier's team. They successfully 3D printed functional human pancreatic islets.
The cells that produce insulin.
The very ones. This is huge because current treatments, like just infusing islets into the liver, well, they often get compromised. The environment isn't quite right.
So Perrier's goal was different.
Yeah, his objective was to perfectly recreate the actual pancreatic microenvironment using the printer. And to pull that off, they had to be incredibly precise with their manufacturing settings. We're talking really low pressure, just 30 kilopascals.
That sounds tiny.
It is, and a super slow print speed, like 20 millimeters per minute, crawling along, all just to avoid damaging the delicate cells during the printing process.
And the material they printed with? The bioink. That was key too.
Absolutely critical. It's the core operational constraint, really. They used a specialized bioink made from alginate, which is common, but crucially, mixed with decellularized human pancreatic tissue.
Okay, decellularized human pancreatic tissue. Break that down.
It sounds complex, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward and, frankly, brilliant. They take actual pancreatic tissue, strip out all the original cells, leaving behind just the natural scaffolding, the extracellular matrix.
So like the natural support structure.
Exactly. It provides the perfect, biologically recognizable home for the new cells. So by printing the live islets within this natural ink, they achieved over 90% cell survival after printing.
Which is amazing for bioprinting.
It really is. And they showed better glucose response compared to standard methods. So this research points towards potentially having personalized, maybe even off-the-shelf, implantable islet cells for type 1 diabetes someday.
It's fascinating how that technical constraint keeping the cells alive directly drives the material science solution, the special bioink.
It's a perfect example.
Okay, let's pivot that material science angle to the food industry now. 3D food printing. It's always kind of hit a wall, hasn't it? Because most food-based materials, like starches, they're hydrophilic.
Right, they love water.
And they just turn to mush when you try to print detailed shapes.
Exactly. Mush is the enemy if you want structure. But some researchers found a potential solution, looking back to an ancient grain, sorghum.
Sorghum.
Yeah, the protein in sorghum turns out to be hydrophobic. It repels water. This property makes it potentially an ideal novel bioink for printing stable, detailed food structures that don't just collapse.
Interesting. So what's the strategic takeaway there for, say, marketing or logistics?
Well, because this sorghum gel holds its shape really well, it allows for something else. The encapsulation of things that don't dissolve in water. Think certain medicines or complex nutrients. You can embed them within the printed structure.
Ah, okay. So the implications for maybe decentralized service models could be pretty big then.
Potentially huge. You could be looking at a future where a food tech company isn't just selling, a generic printed snack, but a functional delivery system. Imagine a rural clinic, maybe miles from a pharmacy.
Yeah.
They could potentially print a medicine-filled meal precisely tailored to a patient's specific caloric needs and their required medication dosage. Food becomes a localized, personalized drug delivery platform.
Wow. That really connects the dots between food, pharma, and manufacturing.
And that connection leads us perfectly to the operational side. Because all these biological breakthroughs, they rely entirely on the mechanical tools, the precision, the process optimization that comes from Industry 4.0 and advanced manufacturing.
Right, the tools have to keep up. Okay, let's maybe nail down the lexicon again just for our strategy-focused listeners. When we say additive manufacturing,
we mean 3D printing, essentially, building layer by layer. And crucially, it scales through complexity, making intricate things rather than just sheer volume.
Got it. Precision medicine.
That's tailoring treatments, drugs, therapies based on very specific genetic or biological traits of an individual, hyper-personalized.
And Industry 4.0, that term gets thrown around a lot.
It does. Think of it as the comprehensive leveraging of digital technologies, AI, IoT sensors, real-time data analytics, robotics, all working together to achieve significantly better operational outcomes. Efficiency, quality, speed.
Okay. And this is where some of the critique comes in, right? About just buying tech versus actually getting results. The sources suggested Industry 4.0 success isn't just about implementing one cool digital tool.
No, absolutely not. It's all about synergy. That was a key finding.
Synergy. That came out of the Lighthouse Strategy research by McKinsey, didn't it? They found these sites around the world that were successfully implementing Industry 4.0.
Yeah, over 100 of them.
Driving massive impact across the board, sustainability, agility, customization, you name it. But the key differentiator, the research said, wasn't just having the biggest budget for tech, it was the synergistic deployment of different use cases working together.
Synergy sounds great, easy to say, but organizationally, it's incredibly difficult to actually achieve. Take that European automotive factory example they cited.
What did they do?
They managed to cut warranty incidents by 50%, huge, and manufacturing costs by over 10%. But, and this is the key point, only by combining 3 separate digital tools that work together.
Okay, what were they?
A RATE first-time quality assurance system using sensors and analytics. Then, a digital daily management solution connecting workers on the floor directly with real-time KPIs. And finally, AI actively optimizing the cycle time of their robots. None of those alone would have achieved that result.
Okay. But wait a second. That sounds incredibly complex and probably really expensive to implement all 3 and integrate them. If success really relies on achieving that kind of synergy, connecting multiple high-cost digital tools, doesn't that Lighthouse model inherently favor the big guys? The large, capital-intensive firms.
That's a great point.
It feels like it might bias the system against smaller, maybe more radical disruptors who might have a brilliant but maybe isolated piece of technology, but lack the resources for that full-scale synergistic integration.
That is absolutely the strategic tension here. You've hit it exactly. Achieving that kind of synergistic transformation, it requires massive internal integration capabilities, significant investment, which, let's be honest, only established incumbents can typically afford, at least initially.
Right.
So it really raises that critical question. Are we inadvertently building a kind of digital moat around the largest players? And in doing so, are we potentially overlooking or even hindering more radical innovation from smaller players who just lack that initial mountain of capital?
Yeah.
It's a really key critique for innovators and policymakers to wrestle with.
Okay. Let's shift back to material precision for a moment, but on the mechanical side, something that could support this newer, more agile model. Laser-assisted cold spray, or LACS. You mentioned this as a potential game changer, especially for high-stakes industries like aerospace.
Yeah, LACS is definitely one to watch. It's the form of additive manufacturing, but instead of melting powders, it projects them at high speed onto a surface. A localized laser provides just enough heat to help fuse the particles without melting the underlying base material.
Okay, and the initial hook, managerially speaking, was cost.
That was the easy sell, yeah. Traditional cold spray often uses helium gas, which is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
The source mentioned something like 80 pounds per minute. LACS avoids that dependency, using cheaper gases like nitrogen or even just air.
Okay, cost savings are nice, but you said that obscures the real strategic advantage. Why is that minimal thermal impact on the base material such a big deal for corporate strategy? What does that unlock?
Because in aerospace, you're dealing with these incredibly advanced, often proprietary high-strength materials. Think exotic titanium alloys, specialized ceramics, metal matrix composites.
Stuff engineered for extreme conditions.
Exactly. They're engineered to maintain their specific structural integrity under immense stress, heat, vibration. Now, if you try to repair a crack or damage on one of those components using traditional methods like welding or fusion, which involve high heat,
You risk changing the base material itself.
precisely, you fundamentally alter the base material's carefully engineered structural properties around the repair zone. LACS avoids that. It allows for really strong adhesion of the repair material while preserving the original properties of the component it's bonded to.
Okay, so that directly impacts asset uptime, right? It lets companies potentially repair complex, very expensive parts, maybe even on-site, instead of having to replace them entirely.
Exactly. Think about the massive strategic burden of maintaining spare parts inventories, especially for older aircraft. Remember the Concorde example? They had to store decades worth of unique parts.
Huge cost, huge logistics.
LACS potentially enables decentralized on-demand repair right where the asset, the plane, the engine actually sits, rather than relying on a centralized factory replacement model for many types of repairs.
So that really enables a shift in corporate strategy, doesn't it? Away from just mass production of spares towards something more like service-oriented manufacturing.
That's a perfect way to put it. You're no longer just selling a replacement part. You're selling the guaranteed uptime, the operational availability of the asset, and you're doing it through tailored, low-waste, potentially more energy-efficient repair methods, which, by the way, also directly supports the whole net zero transition goal for complex products like electric vehicle components or fuel cells, too. It's about extending life and efficiency.
Okay, so we've looked at the convergence right from the molecular code of DNA edits with CRISPR all the way up to the mechanical precision of LACS fixing an aircraft part. Now we really need to spend some time on the strategic implications. What does this all mean for you, the listener, the learner in this space?
Absolutely. Let's start with some of the tough questions, especially around genomics and equity, given the, frankly, very high cost of these personalized technologies like Cas9, and also considering the historical reality that, well, the foundational genomic studies that underpin a lot of this work overwhelmingly enrolled participants of European descent.
Right, the data itself isn't globally representative.
Exactly. So how do companies ethically market these breakthroughs? And maybe more importantly, how do we ensure equitable access, health equity, when the technology is expensive and potentially built on biased data?
That bias point is huge. It fundamentally challenges the whole precision aspect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if the personalized treatment models are primarily trained or validated on racially non-representative data, the resulting treatment might simply not be as effective or might even have unforeseen consequences for other populations.
Precisely. So corporate strategy here, it has to move way beyond just thinking about technology adoption rates. It needs to embed health equity considerations right into the R&D pipeline and the marketing budget from day one. It can't be an afterthought.
Okay, let's shift back to operations and LACS. If that technology really does enable more decentralized maintenance repairing these high-strength materials right where the aircraft is grounded, for instance, how do firms actually manage that transition? How do they shift their entire corporate structure, maybe their culture even, away from that comfortable centralized mass production model towards this more distributed, service-oriented approach?
That's a massive organizational change challenge.
It seems like it would require empowering local teams with not just the technology, but also sophisticated data analysis capabilities and decision-making authority. That's a big shift for many traditional manufacturers.
It really is. And tying back to the biology side, if we start treating DNA as genuinely programmable code and tissues can actually be bioprinted on demand, well, the whole traditional concept of the product lifecycle gets thrown out the window, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, a biological product or a therapy derived from it is no longer necessarily static. It could be iterative. It might even evolve or be updated over time. So what new kinds of entrepreneurial structures like that dedicated CRISPR-X research team we talked about are needed within established firms to manage this incredibly rapid, iterative biological innovation? You're essentially managing evolving code, not static inventory.
That's the critical difference, managing code versus inventory. And that loops right back to market-facing strategy, doesn't it? If, say, 3D printed functional food with these novel bioinks like sorghum actually becomes commonplace.
Which is still an if, but a plausible one.
Right. Food tech companies surely can't just rely on the novelty factor forever. They'll have to figure out market adoption strategies that focus squarely on the benefits, the customized nutrition, the precise medicinal delivery. But how do you actually convince consumers? How do you integrate what might be a necessary medical intervention into a daily meal without crossing some kind of psychological barrier? That feels like a huge marketing and behavioral science challenge.
Absolutely. It requires building trust and demonstrating clear value beyond just, hey, look, printed food.
Okay, so the synthesis here, connecting all these dots, it seems clear. All these diverse technologies we've discussed, whether it's LACS repairing an aircraft wing or CRISPR editing DNA, they all point towards this powerful organizational shift, a move away from the generalized one-size-fits-all fit.
And the mass production mindset.
Towards the customized, data-driven, highly precise solution. And that demands that organizations become, well, exponentially more agile, more collaborative, and way more data fluent than the old industrial models ever required them to be.
So wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for you, the strategic learner listening in?
Well, first, it means that digital transformation. It's definitely no longer just confined to the IT department or software companies. It has pushed deeply into the physical and the biological worlds. Customization is rapidly becoming the new normal, the expectation.
And then second, corporate success, particularly in these advanced manufacturing and life science sectors, It increasingly hinges on achieving that synergistic digital deployment we discussed, where different tools and platforms amplify each other's effects, just like the Lighthouse factories demonstrated. It's not about buying isolated tech point solutions anymore.
Right. And third, maybe encouragingly for innovation, the logistical and cost barriers to entry for some of these advanced, precise manufacturing techniques are starting to lower. We saw that with LACS, reducing the dependency on expensive helium and complex setups.
Yeah, that potentially enables much greater decentralized repair, specialized production runs, maybe even remanufacturing, which could radically alter traditional supply chain models and boost sustainability.
But, and this is crucial, remember those strategic trade-offs and ethical considerations. They absolutely must be integrated into every technology adoption plan right from the start, particularly in areas like precision medicine, where biased data can unfortunately lead to fundamentally inequitable health outcomes if not proactively addressed.
So let's leave you with a final, maybe provocative thought to mull over. If DNA truly is becoming programmable code, and advanced manufacturing lets us create incredibly complex materials and even biological tissues on demand, could it be that the next generation of truly disruptive corporate strategy will focus less on owning the physical factories, the tangible assets?
And more on developing, controlling, and licensing the digital blueprints, whether those blueprints are for advanced materials, biological tissues, personalized drug delivery systems, or customized nutritional profiles.
Exactly. Is the core value shifting from physical production capacity to intellectual property embodied in digital code? That potential shift in where value is created and captured, that might just be the defining strategic question of the next decade for innovators and leaders like you.
Thanks for tuning into the Lion's Share podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion, share it with a friend and join us next time for more ideas worth talking about. We'll see you next time.